Presenting to a group is more and more becoming part of business life. Now, you've heard the old line about the three most important things to consider when buying real estate: position, position, and position. Well, what do you think are the three main reasons why business presentations fail? Well, it's because they're boring, boring, and boring.
And it's important for the work group to be aware of what's okay behaviour.
Look at them, they're bored. They're not being persuaded.
Also, develop plans for environmental performance improvement. I think we have to discuss that, but...
If we are really truthful, this presentation is probably a waste of time. Now, it's different if you're a professional presenter like this one. He does it most of the time.
And that's what we're going for this week, a change of attitude that can bring about an outstanding change of results. Let's go.
But what about those of you who only present occasionally? Well, I'd like to offer you 6 ways to make sure your next presentation is as effective and professional as possible. Whatever the topic, the target audience, or the time available, maximise the first moments by finding out what your audience wants, needs, or expects. Ask them. Damien is a corporate lawyer who is increasingly required to present to groups. Today he is giving a presentation on a legal principle called duty of care.
Just if you could give me some examples or experiences or background as to what it means to you in relation to the organisation and what are you looking for from this afternoon?
Yeah, well, I guess I'd really like to know exactly what we have to do in our organisation to make sure we're on the right lines.
You understand what duty of care means?
Well, I have a view, but I'm not quite sure whether it's the right one.
Damien is finding out about his audience so he can fine-tune his presentation to meet their needs.
A definition, are you looking for a context in which to place it?
Well, I think a definition would be a good starting point, and then...
So, maximise the first moments. Find out what your audience wants and needs, and then go on to tell your audience what you're going to cover. This is Alison starting her training presentation with an overview of her session.
We're going to be spending about 45 minutes together today, and I thought it best to let you know how that will be done. We'll be having about the first 5 to 10 minutes talking about the framework for the program.
People often think giving a presentation means giving a one-way lecture. But sadly, attention spans often drop after only a few minutes of straight talking. You see, we think about 4 times faster than we can speak. So the challenge for any presenter is to maintain the audience attention. How? By involving the audience. Heidi is trying to sell to a group of tough advertising people, and their interest level is dropping.
So if I said to you, Peter, you could put an ad in the middle of this page here, so...
Can you guarantee consecutive pages?
Yes, I can.
The same position on consecutive pages.
Yes, that's right.
What about L's or...
Yes, L's or T's. What about T's? Something that's like this.
Heidi is getting a high level of audience involvement by asking questions, seeking opinions and reactions, and encouraging discussion.
Again, these are things that can only be done in the classifieds. Maybe have a 6x8 up here and then running straight down the middle of your page.
Well, you're going to have trouble putting those, you know, fundamentals that we need in terms of the selling image into that sort of format.
Well,
if the audience is negative, research indicates that 2-way presentations are more effective than 1-way presentations. When you present to a group, you can do a lot of talking, which people will listen to. But you can also show them charts, slides, overhead projections, samples, videos, which they can look at. You see, if you get your audience to use more than one sense, vision as well as hearing, you get more of their attention.
So if I just use the whiteboard to illustrate to you.
Well, Damien is right to be using the whiteboard, but he's doing too much writing and everyone is waiting. Look at the difference when Damien uses the whiteboard this way.
1932 was the key year when they came out with the court case decision. We had duty of care.
Keep the pace up. Use whiteboards or a flip chart only for key words, numbers, lists or simple diagrams. Shane is a junior member of staff trying to convince a management group to adopt an environmental policy. And this is his first presentation and he's nervous.
First of all, I think, as I just said, to develop an environmental policy is quite important, and allocate responsibilities for environmental performance at all levels.
Now, it's great that he's using an overhead slide, but again, it has far too much information on it. It's boring. And worse still, there's the temptation to read the overhead slide out aloud. Look at the difference this time, as Shane skillfully uses a new overhead slide.
And 23 printers left on, and that was disturbing. And after a few calculations, they determined that $100 a day in electricity was being wasted. That doesn't sound much, but when you calculate that even further, that's $30,000 a year minimum, if not more.
So, use visuals, but make sure you use them properly.
Whatever way they can, however little it is, they want to help save the environment.
One of the reasons most people get nervous when making a presentation to a group is that they fear a hostile or difficult audience. That's why maintaining control of your audience is so important. Let's take an example. Alison is facing an unfriendly group. A couple of people in the back row have even started up a conversation.
We're talking about training programs.
All right.
The company runs a number of ones internally, and we also offer support for things that are offered externally. Has anyone been on any of our training courses?
Alison is losing control fast. So what can she do?
What I have here is a booklet that we put out twice a year, which has a range of training courses available, and what I'll do is I'll just pass it amongst you. Could I just start with the back over here? Would you like to just pass it round, have a look, and then pass it round so we can have a chance to have a look at it?
Another way to handle this same situation would be like this.
And a list of training courses is published in the staff magazine each month. One of the things I'd be interested in is how do you see your career developing with the company?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I missed it.
We were talking about training and development, and one of the things I was interested in is, as a woman, how do you see your career developing within this company?
Well, I think there needs to be more education provided for women.
Now, Alison didn't have to tell the person to stop talking. Maintaining control can be much more subtle. Now, what I like to do as a presenter when two people in my audience are talking is just keep on talking to the group, but start walking towards the chattering people without looking at them or making a fuss. I find they always stop talking. Sometimes all you have to do is just pause your presentation, look at the people talking, wait till they stop, and then keep on going. Maintaining control, keeping the audience on track and moving in the direction you want to go. Now, throughout an entire presentation, it's essential to read the group. You can usually read the group just by looking at them. If they look bored, switch gears. Tell a story, get some discussion going, crack a joke.
But before he ever hit the ball, he'd reach into his back pocket, he'd pull out a little brown book, and he'd look at the little brown book and he'd open it up and he'd read it for about 20 seconds and then he'd just put it back into his back pocket. Then he'd take
Stories, anecdotes and practical examples can re-energise a group, particularly during a long technical presentation.
The little brown book said, hit white ball into hole on green.
We have legislation. And the reason for that is, I guess, the change in society.
Now, sometimes the signals you read from the group are so strong you have to deal with them up front.
And we have a coordinator in each division and each plant. I'm getting a bit of a sense here that you people are finding this a bit boring. I imagine you're finding it boring. How is it?
A little bit boring.
A little bit boring?
No,
Yeah.
fairly boring.
Very
Very
boring.
boring.
Can you see any way that actually relates to your work, relates to your job?
I really do believe in situations like this that you're better off bringing the issues out into the open so that you can deal with them. And how can Alison deal with this group?
Things are just left.
Yeah.
Is that a common thing that happens?
You're just out of touch with the way things are on the work site.
And how does that make you feel?
No, real good.
Yeah?
Sometimes letting people get it out of their system is enough, as in this case. Other times you may have to drastically change your presentation to deal with your audience's concern. Either way, if you don't read your audience and respond, your presentation is likely to be a waste of time. The last way of ensuring your presentation is effective is to push your audience for action. Apply a little subtle pressure to make sure something happens. In many business presentations, like this one, it's about closing the sale, getting the group to commit to go with an idea.
If I could show you how you could be different, would you be interested?
Other times it might be better to brainstorm ideas.
Well, this has all been good to talk about this, but let's think about where we're going to go from here. What I'm interested in is your suggestions, things that you think you can do and things that we can do. Perhaps things we're already doing, but we perhaps do better. Any clues? Any ideas?
Alison is getting her audience to generate some ideas about how women can be more fairly treated in the workplace. The ideas are all great, but talk is cheap. She needs to push for action a little harder.
Come out of that, and that is allowing people time out to have children career breaks. The other thing is childcare. Okay, thank you. They're two good things. What else?
I don't know, I suppose men could give women some more encouragement, I suppose, in training-wise. I don't think people are encouraged enough to go out and do it.
What do you think you could do about this?
Me personally?
Yeah, you personally.
I suppose I could encourage some people I know.
Yeah, anyone in particular?
I think pushing for action like this is terrific. It means something will actually happen. Now let me push you to action. Think of the next presentation you have to give and write down at least 3 specific things that you will do to make it more effective and more professional. Will you find out your audience's needs and give them an outline of your presentation in the first moments? Will you get audience involvement by asking questions, encouraging discussion and using other activities? Will you use visual aids, but making sure that they are simple, not cluttered? Will you maintain control to keep your audience on track? Will you constantly read the audience and respond to the signals they give you? And finally, will you push your audience to action?